right. Hi, guys. I'm here with Katie again. You probably recognize her already from the vault. She talked about personal marketing last time. And this time we're going to talk, do a little recap on personal marketing and specifically how it relates to brand photography and how you can make sure that you kind of are including some of those really core things within your own business. Or if you're interested in brand photography, Katie has just branched out into that and is doing a phenomenal job so far. But Katie, I'm just going to kick it straight off to you if you want to do a little recap of kind of some of the stuff that we talked about last time with personal marketing and what that looks like, because that's such a intangible term, but I feel like you do a really good job of narrowing it down to specifically what that looks like.
Well, that was a great intro. Thank you. It's so fun to be back. I'm so excited. And like Manali said, that I've recently branched into a little bit more brand photography. And with that specifically, I primarily serve personal brands. So to get started with things, I kind of wanted to review what that looked like. We did a little bit of that last year. So if you're looking for another video on personal marketing, stuff like that, Manali has a really awesome resource somewhere in all of her amazing vault stuff. So to kick things off,
video with Katie's face.
Yeah, it'll be the last video.
All the guest expert series. So yeah, that's where you can find
it. Yeah. So the beginning part of this will kind of be a review of what we talked about last time, but then we'll tie it all together with how that helps you create and produce a personal brand while also talking a little bit about what branding photography is, the difference between branding sessions and headshot sessions, as well as a couple of key factors to look for when it comes to knowing if you're ready for a brand session. Because I think that's a really important and valuable piece of information to have available, because as a brand photographer, I always want to make sure that your photos are serving you in the season that you're in. And it can be really easy to be like, oh my gosh, this new, amazing concept brand photography, I want to get involved, but I want them to ultimately serve you long-term. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. First, little overall arching umbrella. I just want to say these are my personal viewpoints on all of these topics. You may talk to another brand photographer and they have a completely different take. So just keep that in mind. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. I hope it's helpful. But when it comes to personal marketing, personal branding, and personal brand photography, these are all of just my personal insights at this current time. Cool. So a little bit about, let me get comfy here. Hold on.
I know.
I know. It's let's get on it. I printed out my little outline and it's a couple pages long, so we're gonna get rolling here real quick. But basically, personal branding. What is that? It can be a really, really big overarching topic and kind of scary, right, to dive into. But to me, when it comes to a personal brand, really all that is using you to connect to your ideal audience being the key word, and using those unique attributes that'll connect with your ideal audience to create community, to generate, relationships, to start building trust, and to really, really start, I would say, honestly, the heart of personal marketing would be creating community. And the biggest way that you can do that is using those distinguishing factors about yourself to start to set yourself apart from the rest and to really draw in your people that will resonate well with you. Let me get back on my notes because that was just totally a little bit different than my notes. Okay. And I told Manali before this, I tend to go down rabbit holes and I'm trying not to. So a couple of ways that I think personal marketing can look, and a lot of people, look at it like, oh, here's, me walking you through my day. I'm going to take you on through my day on Instagram stories. And while that's a great thing, don't get me wrong, it's totally fine to do that. Personal marketing is actually a brand wide strategy, and it's something you can employ over many different platforms. And it's a little bit deeper than just social media and website and incorporating some of your favorite things into your website and your About Me page. So keep in mind, with that brand wide strategy, you're also looking at voice, incorporating your values, incorporating your why statement, your mission, as well as so many other things that make you you. And don't let this be intimidating, because I have a couple of really amazing resources and places to refer you if you're feeling a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, hey, how do they figure out what their voice looks like, or what your values are? Because I didn't do that for the longest time. I was saying, until I went full time, I didn't realize that I needed that foundation, that branding foundation. And once I started doing the work, I was like, this helps kind of clarify and solidify everything that I've been doing, and was almost just a missing foundational piece that I felt was off. And so if you guys haven't done that, I recommend Katie can point you to specific resources to kind of figure that out for yourself. But I really recommend taking some time to do it.
Yes. So I love sharing other educators. I was going to save this until the end, but Abby Grace Photography, she has an amazing resource on it called Branding Foundations, and I would recommend it to everyone. Manali also has a lot of really amazing resources and blog posts and emails and all of that that go out that I feel like help really start to solidify foundational elements and stuff like that. But I feel like I could sit here and talk about, like share your day, share about your dog, share about your family. And all of those things are great. But until you have that like why behind you're doing that, why
Mhm.
you're doing that, it's going to serve you, but it's only going to serve you on the surface level. So yeah, like Manali said, it took me a while to really realize what the missing link was in my personal marketing strategy. And it was doing that heart work and digging deep and kind of realizing, like what it was that was driving me and my business. So
Mhm.
um, kind of getting back onto just like a general overview of personal marketing, a couple of other ways that this can look. Even as simple as like incorporating your client experience in your social media captions, talking a little bit more about what it was like to work with specific clients, what it was like to be on that shoot. I, consider that to be, an element of personal marketing, replying to comments, replying to DMs, incorporating your voice into your email responses, your email templates, as well as, any email newsletter marketing you're doing. So really looking at each aspect of your business and kind of looking at places where you can infuse yourself, keeping in mind that it's an entire brand wide strategy. Okay, I think I'm tracking. Oh, another one that's really fun, and this will start to tie into brand photography and stuff like that. Sharing your personal expertise, experience, and establishing yourself as an expert within your field is another really great way to use personal marketing. And I feel like a lot of people get intimidated up top when it's like, okay, you need to be using personal marketing. First, you don't need to be using personal marketing if it's not the right strategy for your business.
Mhm.
But if it is the right strategy for your business, a lot of people are like, okay, well, like, I don't know if I'm ready to like share about my family, share about my dog. I have a spouse that has a high security clearance. What do I share? You
Yeah.
can share a little bit more about your expertise, share tips and tricks for, how to make your brand session, the best it could possibly be. I kind of consider all of those to a degree to be a, element of personal marketing, especially if you incorporate your voice. And then with that in mind, incorporating your voice over everything that you do is really important. And establishing that and speaking in that voice, both online and in person, is really important. So I think it's important that your voice is uniquely yours. And that might sound a little confusing, but I can be a little more bubbly and upbeat and like kind of like a golden retriever, a little bit like a lot. And don't want anyone to meet me in person and be like, oh, like she is a lot different than she is online. Like she's a little more subdued. Like online, I was expecting someone that would come like, hi, how are you? But I'm like, hi, everyone, how are you doing?
Yeah.
It would be a disconnect and it would start to break that trust. So, by helping people get to know me before we're in person,
Mhm.
um, and that voice, it already has that piece of trust and I know what to expect when we're together.
Yeah. I
Um,
just wanted to say,
yeah.
like, if you guys are struggling to tactically do that, I think a really, really great way of like, and I told somebody this like just recently, is like
Mhm.
instead of crafting your Instagram caption in that little box or like your blog post in that box, like I recommend like just voice recording yourself and then
Yes.
kind of like using that so that you're not like editing yourself as you're typing, because some people tend to
Hmm.
do that, and you tend to sound a little bit more robotic if you're like editing yourself as you type. And so like if you're doing blog posts or Instagram captions or even like Instagram stories, like
Hmm.
talk as if you would be talking to a friend or like a client
Yeah.
in person, because I have the same thing. Like I'm a lot quirkier with my clients in person, and I try to bring
Hmm.
that into like how I speak online too, because I don't want it to be like super poised and like perfect, and then in person I'm like
Yeah.
making weird puns and like kind of like being a goof a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, something that me and one of my she second shoots for me a lot. What we would do at the end of each wedding day, like especially if it was a day where we are like, wow, that was a really great day. There's a lot we want to remember. We would audio record messages and just kind of go back and forth, being like, oh, remember this, oh, remember that. Or, it was really cute to see the couple go off, during sunset at their reception and take a little bit of time together while their guests enjoyed dinner.
Mhm.
And making those little notes really, really helped. And they were also like in our voice in the moment. So we
Yeah,
were all hype about it. And then it
yeah,
was easier to translate it later.
I like that. It's such a smart
Yeah.
and such a quick and like easy thing to do,
Hmm.
like just while you're driving back, and that way you kind of like capture that like feeling and like in the
Yeah.
moment stuff, and you can translate it into words later. Yeah, I love
And
that.
I think one important thing to note with voice too, and even overall brand strategy, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when it comes to planning brand sessions and stuff like that. But it can be really easy to look at other people in the industry and to look at their voice, to look at their imagery, to look at, everything like that and to compare. And it's really, really hard to put on your blinders and to stay in, essentially your own lane. I don't necessarily like love that because I think it is also important that we're, shouting out and sharing, enjoying time with our neighbors as well.
Yeah.
But if you feel like something's off, this is speaking from personal experience because I had like a moment where I was just like, oh, personal brand identity crisis, where you feel like something might be a little bit off.
Mhm.
Look within instead of looking outward.
Yeah.
Look at those things that feel off inward rather than being like, what are other people doing that I, can pull from?
Cute.
While
Yeah,
there's
you can like
yeah,
emulate. Yeah. No, I totally
yeah,
agree. I remember we were talking about this over Voxer
yeah,
too. So
yeah.
she's definitely gone through it. And I love the idea of like going inwards. And honestly, even with like setting foundational brand stuff, I think at the
Mhm,
beginning I was like looking outwards for inspiration. But when I went to go do those like like core elements, like the voice and like mission and like core values and
mhm.
stuff like that, like I like made it a day where I was not going to go on social media at all. Like I was like from
Yeah,
start to end, like I want to make sure that this is all coming from within and not like inspiration coming inwards into the
yeah,
reflecting that, but like really like who am I at the core as a person without outside influence. So
yeah. Because at the end, who you are as a person, that genuine connection
mhm.
is what's gonna foster that community, and, I always say, like, the biggest thing with personal marketing, we're gonna talk about this in just a second, is that it's always coming from a genuine place. It's always coming from a place where you wanna share who you are, and you wanna use who you are to create those genuine connections and to serve people. Because it can be really easy to be like, "Okay, like, everyone loves Starbucks. Let me use that as a part of, like, my personal marketing element. I don't go to Starbucks. I go to Dunkin', or I don't drink coffee,"
Yeah.
you know?
Oh yeah, that was
And
such a thing in the creative industry for a little while. I feel like people
yeah,
are
so
phasing out now, but yeah,
yeah.
that's such a good example.
Yeah, so it can be really easy to be like, "Oh my gosh, like I need to incorporate, all of these things because that's what people are interested in." But at the end of the day, if you're being genuine to who you are, like your community will come. It might take a little bit of time and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I think we kind of have touched on that. Um, Creating connection, building community, doing all of those things in advance are really going to serve your business long term. When you have the trust of your clients, you're able to serve them better. Because honestly, it's just because they trust you. If you ask them to go stand next to a dumpster because the light is really pretty and the wall behind them is solid and like a beautiful, like let's say like white or peach or something like that, but they're standing next to a stinky dumpster, like if they didn't trust you, they would be like,
What?
and they still might be a little bit like that even if they trust you, but chances are good they'll be like, "Okay, well, like, we understand, like, you know what you're doing."
Yeah.
And when you hear those words, that's, like, the biggest music to your ears. Like, it's just, like, it's the best feeling. Everyone's like, "Okay, we trust you. We'll do whatever you wanna do." Of course, like, you wouldn't put them you know how to do
To the
it. Just
extent, yes.
I don't need to dive into that, but,
Yeah.
I think that is the biggest element, community and trust when it comes to personal marketing, and also, serving from your values. I think that's the really important thing is it's really easy to get burned out if you are not serving from a place that's true to who you are as a person. Um, and I am a kind of person that likes to work and do all the things and, um, be busy, busy, busy nonstop. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of important things, to me. Like this week, my brother's in town and I have a ton of sessions, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like family's really important to me. That's one of my values. And I've had to put, a little bit of a firm stop on the end of my workday this week. Like while I would love to get all of my editing done at once,
Mhm.
I decided to outsource a couple of things. And, while that's not necessarily something I'm infusing into my personal marketing strategy, it comes back to the fact that my clients
Yeah.
expect a quick turnaround with their galleries, and it's important to me that I'm upholding that, you know, part of my brand standard. So, long story short, long tangent short, serve from your values. If personal marketing isn't a part of your personal values, it's okay to not use that as a marketing strategy. If you want to use something that's an overarching, just, business brand, I'm going to build a brand that doesn't incorporate my face, who I am as a person. I want to grow a team. I want to have a, you know, huge team of associates that serve underneath my brand. It's okay to just put this to the side and to, not incorporate it or to incorporate your own elements in your own way. Um, So I always want to be, pretty clear with that, and that like personal marketing might not be for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of the day, it's what makes you unique, what sets you apart as a creative. It's what, really distinguishes who you are as a person from the person next door. Which is why it's really important that you're looking inward and you're, looking at what makes you you, and what excites you and what drives you, and what also, like I said, with values, what keeps you fueled, what makes you excited, what, rings true to you, and all that good stuff. We're on to our third page.
Wait,
Um,
question for you, Katie. For
yeah.
people that are like, oh, I'm just like a normal person, I do really
Mhm.
ordinary things, like how do you recommend they go about figuring
Yeah.
out like what is unique? Because I feel like sometimes we're like, oh, we're not unique because you're just so used to it because like that's the
Yeah.
life we live. But
Yeah.
I know that you've also kind of, I think you touched on this a little bit last time, but I think
Yeah.
it's an important thing to like pull into the conversation of how do people find those
Yes.
things that are unique about themselves, and sometimes they're like, I don't know what that is. Like, how do they find that?
Yeah. So we've got that coming right here. So this is perfect timing.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the number one thing that anyone always says when it comes to personal marketing. Like
Mhm.
literally, when I tell you this morning, I woke up, my roommate came home from night shift, I made a smoothie, I sat down, I started editing,
Mhm.
and then I hopped on here. Like that's been the extent of my day. Like it's been nothing exciting. It's been nothing, like I would say like revolutionary.
Mhm.
But I would say like a couple of places to start. If you're like, I don't know
What?
where to start with this, what to start with. Sit down with the people closest to you. And this is, where I think it's a great chance to look outward, and to ask them what they think of when they think of you, what they think of when they think of your business. And we'll talk a little bit more about brand and what that looks like and why this is a really great exercise in a little bit. But um, it can be really easy to think that your story doesn't matter and that your story is not going to connect with someone.
Mhm.
And that's just not true. It's not true at all. And I've found that that's the easiest thing to believe because it's the most comfortable thing to believe. And I always say with personal marketing, it's okay to set boundaries. There are certain things that I do not share about, and
Mhm.
there are certain things that I overshare about. And that's okay. And I think when it comes to looking at those things and deciding what you want to share and everything, um, you can even keep a sticky note in your phone. Like sit down and like think about what really sparked joy in your day. Like, oh my gosh, I went to Starbucks and I got this green tea, and like they did a really good job, like, putting enough guava juice in it today, like, because I like to do, like, the nice green tea with guava juice in it. It's really good.
I need to try
Um,
that now. I've never had that before.
it's really good.
Writing it down.
Um, and I got one the other day and it was a little watery, and then I got one the other
The
day and it's, like,
guava.
really good.
Yes,
Yeah.
guava is the key.
Yes, they did enough guava and it was really good, and I was like, it fired me up for the rest of the day. I was like, "I'm ready to go, like, this is great." So look at those little parts of your day that really
Yeah.
fire you up, and look at those parts about your job that really fire you up. What do you wanna see more of? But even more than that, what is going to resonate with your ideal client? You gotta sit down and decide who that person is. Who are you trying to speak to? And then what do you have in common? It might not necessarily be that, like, you both love to shop at Starbucks or you both love to shop at Trader Joe's. But it could be that you both have, a love for working outside of the house and coffee shops. You could both, really, really like to try new products and to create new recipes together. And it just so happens that you shop for them at Trader Joe's. So think about all those little things, but also don't look too much into it. Chances are good the simplest things are going to be what connects you to people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be anything groundbreaking,
I was
incredibly
gonna
deep.
say, like,
Yeah.
that reminds me of like one of the best pieces of advice for like incorporating personal marketing like into your overall brand strategy that I
Mhm.
got was from a brand designer, Bonnie. She was also a guest expert, but
Mhm.
she was talking about how people will best align with people based off of values more so
Yep.
than like specific little things. So, like you
Yep.
mentioned, your family, and I know that you share about your family a lot on your Instagram.
Mhm.
And my guess is that you probably connect with like a lot of brides that like family is a really important thing to
Yep.
their wedding day, right? Like that's probably something that
Mhm.
you just like connect, and it might be even like on a subconscious level, but that's like
Yep.
a part of personal marketing, right? Of kind of like
Yep.
showing things that kind of are tied to your values. Is that right? Do you think?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of personal marketing, it can be really easy to get caught up in using certain pieces, certain things, certain stores, certain
Mhm.
items,
Mhm.
like nouns to connect to your business.
Mhm.
But what we really want to look for is, like Manali said, those values, and then look for the noun that might be connected to the value.
Yeah.
My family is connected to an overarching feeling of like, community, and I guess family could be a value, but staying in touch with them and being really connected with them, even though we live in different places around the country. Another really important thing to me, I would say, would be, let's say, like integrity and sharing a little bit more about like, working with what is and isn't key to my values is really important to me as well. So sometimes I'll share a little bit like, hey, like you guys, I would love to take on more sessions this May, but I'm a little booked right now, so I'm not taking on any sessions until, later. While that is considered a booking update, I think, sharing a little bit more about why
Why?
that might be can
Mhm.
help to kind of generate a little bit more connection than just like, oh, girlfriend's busy. Like it's like, oh,
Yeah.
busy, like I'm saving a little bit of bandwidth in my schedule to work on, projects or,
Mhm.
stuff like that. So at the end of the day, your clients are people. They're just like you. And keep your boundaries. But it's also important to remember that like it's okay to share the random things. It's okay to be like, wow, let me look around my room with my
OTF, Katie.
yeah, OTF. I was like looking around me. I caught my box of my sister's bridal shower stuff in my
Oh
eye,
yeah, yeah.
corner of my eye. And I was home with my mom this weekend to do a little craft weekend. And I shared a little bit about the Cricut machine. And I was like, oh, craft weekend's beginning. And I can't tell you how many messages I got from people being like, oh my gosh, we love our Cricut. Or like,
Is that
we
how it's
use like,
pronounced? I thought it was
yeah,
cry
I
cut
think so.
for the longest time. Oh, okay. Sorry.
We always call it the Cricut. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It could be Cricut because I've also heard, I saw someone messaged me. They're like, "Wait, is that how you say it?" Because I always thought it was cry cut.
Okay,
So
no.
I don't know who's right. Either way, we use that machine, and I like posted a little bit. And I was like, I can't post a little bit more about it, but right there, that ties
Yeah,
in the element of spending time with my family, but also keeping boundaries in a busier season to be able to do things like this with my family.
yeah.
And it's all like Manali said, subconscious messaging. It's not necessarily being like, here I am setting boundaries, but that's something I struggle with. But it's something that you can subconsciously incorporate through messaging and stuff like that. Okay, a little bit of a pivot. Oh yeah, also Manali mentioned Orange Theory. I'm an Orange Theory coach.
Mhm.
Previously, I think I used an example. I use that a lot to connect with clients. I share about it on my story. I like to do member shout outs and stuff like that on my story where I share their stats, their results, and all of that. And I've started really connecting with a couple of people that don't work out at my studio. They work out in different studios in different parts of the DMV and where they're local to. And it's been fun to be able to connect with them on that during sessions. Gives
Mhm.
you something to talk about,
Yeah.
and it gives you a really genuine place to kind of connect
Mhm.
with it out it being like anything too serious. Like it's a really fun like conversation thing. So um, that can be really it could seem like how would that be relevant to people? Like you're an Orange Theory coach, sure, but like aren't you also a wedding photographer? Isn't this a wedding photography account? Yes. So it's important to look at your ideal audience. Who are you talking to? I know a lot of my people value similar to me, like, an active lifestyle, incorporating movement and wellness into their overall lifestyle. So that would resonate with them. And, some of them work out at the same facilities. So it's been a really fun connection. I had a elopement couple and we just like died laughing about it was like a tough week at the studio and we just like died laughing about like all of the funny stuff that happened in studio that week during their workouts and it was really really fun. But okay, so a little bit more about using personal marketing to build a brand. First, talking about what is a brand. And I think the biggest thing I know we've talked a lot about going inward.
Mhm.
Um, so this is going to be a little bit of a flip, but I think it's important to remember that as a brand, your brand is the identity of your business as perceived by other people. And while
Yeah.
it can be really easy to let that be intimidating. I know I'm one of those people. I'm like, oh my God, people are going to be thinking things about me. That's really scary. Um, it it's a really cool thing because it gives you a chance to serve in a deeper way. It's more than just a font. Like it's more than just your font scheme, your color scheme, your website. While that's an important part of the puzzle, your values, your goals, your mission statement, your why, all of those things, your product, customer service, voice, personal touches that you incorporate during and after a session. There's so much more that goes into building a brand. the outfits you wear on sessions, the way you show up on stories. Usually I show up no makeup with my hair in a messy bun because most of the time I'm coming from the studio.
Good. Yeah.
So,
Same.
it's okay to build a brand that is true to who you are. And I really struggled with that for a long time, with showing up like, oh my God, I'm not wearing any makeup. I don't wear makeup any day and I'm not going to put it on just to hop on a story.
Right.
And if you do, that's great. That's part of your story. I know there are so many people that love to wake up in the morning and get dressed, put on their makeup. And
They're like so put together for their
yeah.
Instagram stories. And
Hmm.
I was the same thing. I used to be like, oh, I have to do that
Hmm.
too. And I've just found so much freedom and just like letting myself be as I would be for like maybe like doing a session with a couple. I don't super dress up like for a wedding
Yeah.
day, black tie. I'm gonna be a little dressier, but like on their
Yeah.
engagement session, I'm generally wearing what I would normally wear in real life and maybe like
Yeah.
slightly dressier, you know? Um,
Yeah.
or slightly dressed down if we're like hiking up a mountain or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That engagement session you just did was really
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I wore flats. Wrong decision.
Yeah.
I'm like climbing up and down rocks and flats
Oh no.
like, in really weird angles. I'm so glad I wore like leggings, not jeans. Thank goodness. But
Good.
yeah.
Yeah. So like all of those things contribute. And like we talked about earlier, like there's more to a brand than just like the wrapping paper, than just all of the pretty things that you think like, oh, I'm rebranding,
Hmm.
I'm getting a new website.
Yeah.
Chances are good it's going to be a little bit more than that. And you have to have that foundation built.
Hmm.
And that foundation can change. It can expand over time. It can evolve. You can take part of the foundation out and move it to the other side of the house and, put another thing where that piece was. It's okay to see that foundation shift and change over time as you evolve as a business owner and as a person. So keep that in mind too. You're not married to,
The brand.
what you decide on today is your values.
Yeah.
Chances are good it won't change much if it's, what it's really important to you as a person. But, say a season of life changes, like that's totally fine to, see those values, those things change over time. And even, with that product offerings and workflows and everything like that, that tie into your personal experience with your clients. So little experiment here that before we go any further, and I wanted to talk just a little bit more to help you picture more of a brand instead of just looking at like the surface thing. So I wanted to have you close your eyes, which feels a little cheesy. And I have an example here too that we'll kind of go through afterwards. But I want you to pick your favorite place where you order from online. It can be anywhere. It could be a restaurant where you order takeout from. It can be someone you interact with on an occasional basis.
Okay. I have a place. Yeah.
Got it? Okay. So when it comes to, we'll start easy. When it comes to the looks, what do you think of? When it comes to their user experience, what do you think of? Just start to create those notes in the back of your mind. Even more than that, when it comes to their product, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And then the second thing, what are those couple of things that are in like the top 3 that you think of with those brands? Digging a little deeper, what is your experience like when you order from them? What is their, what emails do you receive from them when it comes to confirming your order, when it comes to tracking your order, when
Yeah.
it comes to returning your order, when it comes to ordering on their website? I know sometimes like it's hard to find the add to cart button, then you can't find the cart. And you're just like, I just want to buy something. What is their online voice like? What is their social media sound like? What is their website copy? Is it uniform? Chances are good it'll probably be uniform, but do you see something that's similar overall? And then even more than that, do you know what their values and mission are? Is that something that they make clear? So I use Allbirds as my example. They are my favorite sneakers for weddings. I now part of my brand wear sneakers for weddings now because I've got a bad back and I'm saying I'm a fitness instructor, so yeah, of course I would wear sneakers to a wedding. But again, I bring flats with me just in case, like Manali said, it's a little more fancy and I need to polish it up. But when I think of their website, think of a clean aesthetic, clear imagery, easy to navigate. I think of their brand logo with the little, all birds and the little when it comes to their products, I think of sneakers and walking shoes, but even more than that, I think of comfort. I think of the fact that they have incredible customer support and they interact on social media. They're an active brand on social media, meaning I can tag them in a story and someone will like the story. I had an experience, I think I talked about it the last time I was here, where I ordered a pair of shoes from them and there was like something that happened with the order, and they ended up sending me a box from one of the stores with shoes in it with a handwritten note, a pair of laces, and a pin. And I will never forget that about their brand. So it's those personal touches. Do they take, the extra step to put in? Like with Simplified, Emily Lay, they had a really amazing like insert for their planners, and it was just like the entire experience was amazing. You open up this gorgeous box, there's an insert, you can read about their business, get to know their team. And then with their values and mission, they make it really clear that they're a sustainable company, that they're eco-friendly, and that they're passionate about serving people on the go with intentional products designed to make their lives more comfortable. So that was just like an overall big box brand. So sometimes it can be easier to evaluate and look at other brands. Like I said, it can be a little weird to shift from looking inward to looking outward, but look outward first before you start kind of looking in and say like, okay, maybe like what do people think of when it comes to my brand? And it's okay then.
I was gonna say also
people.
maybe look at brands that are outside of our industry, because I feel like you can learn a
Yeah.
lot from that, and that way you're not taking something that's really, really similar to people who are kind of like within the same industry.
And feeling like you need to cookie cut and kind of, that comparison that can be really heavy. So look at, that's why I said, like, look at the place that you like to order from online. Chances are good you'll want to pick a place that you interact with a lot, and that you've had like an interaction with their customer support. Is it easy? Is it hard? Do they get back to you? Period. What is that like? And then, not necessarily like looking at that and being like, this is how I need to build my brand. But thinking about that experience and how you can use elements to start to build your own brand. And you can even ask someone those questions about your own brand that about their experience with your brand. And that can help you kind of start to see like the reality of what people perceive as your brand. And then you can tweak things on the back end to really make that overall brand image shine to, true to what you want it to be.
I was going to add, Katie, I don't know if you do this, but this kind of reminded me of, I added this into my questionnaire after I went through like the whole branding process. Was after somebody books, I have a questionnaire that asks a lot about them, but I started asking people why they booked me. And then for the testimonial questionnaire, I started asking them what are 3 things they think of when they think of my brand after they've gone through the whole experience, to kind of give me like descriptors and words, or even like some people will be like vibrant or like colorful. And it was really interesting because I started using that messaging in my website, in my captions. And now I see people using the same words on my website to kind of like be like, oh, this is what we thought of the whole experience as a whole. And so that's how you know it's like in alignment. So like that's 2 really, really easy ways to like very tangibly do this. If you don't necessarily want to like ask people to sit down over Zoom and stuff, you can kind of just like organically add it in and like have it be like data that you collect over time.
That's amazing.
Really
yeah, that is such a smart idea. I might steal that from you if you don't mind.
Go for it, dude.
I love that.
Originally, it was like from a brand designer. I was like, that's genius. Like
that's genius.
Not within photography, but like so why we look at other industries.
So then going back, kind of tying everything up in a bow, wanted to come here to talk a little bit more about brand photos, what they are and why they're important. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an overview of what a brand is, what personal branding is, so you can kind of see how this all starts to tie together. So to me, brand photos are a cohesive set of imagery that are curated to share the heart and soul of a brand, to help set the brand apart from their counterparts. At the end of the day, we can have a lot of people doing similar things, and there is room for everyone at the table. But it's up to you to distinguish what is in your unique seat. So you can pull people at the table to the table that would resonate with you and would resonate with what you're selling. So I think I'm just going to read this off my thing because I don't want to forget anything. But I think brand photography, they're intentional images designed to share, including but not limited to values, product offerings, processes, expertise, your why, to create intentional connection with the audience you speak to, and to dig deeper than just the surface. It can be really easy to be like, oh, this is really pretty. Let me, do photos here. Yes, but why?
So if you see me turn my nose, I'm trying to stop myself. Oh my God, I'm like about to sneeze.
I'm about to sneeze.
Sorry, keep going.
No, that's good. That's so good. So I think it's really important to be like, yeah, like something may look really cool and it may look really great to have you wearing a fun hat with a gorgeous skirt and flowers and all of the things in front of, something. But if it doesn't serve an ultimate purpose of connecting with your audience, if it's not digging deeper into your brand, your values, your why, then it doesn't necessarily make sense for a brand photo. Might make a little more sense for a headshot. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the difference between those two, because I feel like there's been a little bit more of a demand in the industry right now for brand photography, for headshots, and that's amazing. There are so many businesses that would be so well served by custom photography. And it's really important that you know the difference between the two, so you know what to expect from the experience that you're, investing in. So these are all how I define these two different types of photography. Someone else may define them totally different. So it's really important that you're doing your research with the person that you're considering hiring to make sure that you understand what it is you'll be receiving as, an overall experience. But I find that they're both primarily focused on creating content that'll serve the business, yes. But headshots focus more on serving like the face of the business, the team, the owner, that kind of stuff. And brand photography is focused more on creating visuals to share the heartbeat of the business that are strategically designed to set the business apart from counterparts. So it's more of a sales driven, focused experience and less of a let's sit down, let's make you look your best and go from there. You'll look your best during brand photos too, but it's a little less about like, sitting polished, looking at the camera, smiling. So
behind the scenes kind of like process of you actually doing your work.
Yeah.
Accurate. Okay.
Yeah. I would say like brand photography a little bit more. I should have pulled an example. I just wasn't sure how I was going to share it, but I can share an example of like what I would consider a headshot versus a brand shot. That might be really, really helpful to see. So I would say the biggest difference between the two is that you'll find that brand photography requires a little bit more digging, a little bit more prep work and a little bit more time. And with headshots, chances are good you can pick an outfit, maybe a couple outfits if more than one are included. And the experience will be pretty, at least in my business, it's pretty, cut and paste across the board, but brand experiences are an entirely customated and curated experience. So a little bit about how you may need to distinguish between which one you might need versus the other. With brand photos, it's so important that you have a cohesive and non-changing vision for your business for the time being, for the period that you hope the images will serve you. It can be really easy to see this, even after this conversation, to be like, I'm fired up, let's do this. But without setting that foundation and with having everything really solid and in place, the images may serve you really well for a period of time, but we want them to serve your business well for a long time. So if you're looking for a brand session, I'm just going to read these off. Chances are good you are confident in your brand and business and do not look to others to determine your overall worth. You have a solid grasp on your brand's values and mission. You have a solid grasp on your current and future offerings, as well as the timeline of any future offering, say with course launches or with pivoting into brand photography, say for me, when I was, when am I going to do that? You have a clear path for how everything happens, whether that's on the back end or looking forward into the future in that plan. You have a specific workflow that you take clients through, but you also have a specific path for where you want to take your business. You have, for the most part, cohesive, non-changing brand visual elements, or if you're in the process of rebranding, you have an idea of what that will look like. And then you have a desire to share more intentionally with your audience and need the images to do so. So I feel like all of those could apply. There are also many other factors that determine, if a brand session would be great for you. But I think those are great places to start and to jump from. Now, a headshot also an amazing resource for people looking to polish up their online presence, up their social media game, and just really create a cohesive tie from website to social to email to all of that. Chances are good you have a solid grasp of your brand's values, visuals, and mission, but only need a couple pictures to tie it together. Like if you're like, I don't think I need like a whole gallery, but I know I need a couple here to kind of tie things together. Headshots might be a really good fit. You're still working out your brand's current and future offerings as well as your timeline and path. I think I want to, maybe I want to get into wedding photography, or maybe I want to get into brand photography, but I'm just not sure when that's going to happen.
Mhm.
Um, I think that, a headshot session could serve you really well. You have solid brand elements, but they might change just a little bit in the future. I would say that would be more so like logo, um, and all of that stuff. If you have, some brand elements that may tweak and change, but have an overall feel for like the vibe of your brand, whether that's like a light and airy brand or more of a muted and colorful brand.
I was gonna
Those are
say,
all
like,
really
even if
important.
you have like a fixed, like not fixed,
Hmm.
but like a general photo aesthetic.
Aesthetic. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you have a desire to start showing up and sharing your heart with your audience, but are still working out exactly how that might look. Maybe you're still working on setting that foundation. You don't have to wait until the foundation is settled to start a business. Make sure you know that. It can
Yeah.
change over time.
Agreed.
Um, you don't have to have everything. I'm a perfectionist. You don't have to have everything perfect before
Diving in.
you start
I think
diving in.
I
Yeah,
think it also, like, it does change as you get more experience and you start working with more
exactly.
clients. It kinda helps
Yeah,
refine what your ideal
refine.
client almost looks like
Yeah.
too. So, I'd say that, yeah, it's definitely not something that you should feel like you need to have, like, absolutely set in stone before you start, because I
Hmm.
think that's more of a detriment than, like, starting and kinda refining it as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you'll learn. Like, experience, I would say, is the best teacher. Like, you do an experience with someone, "Ooh, that felt really good. Why?"
Yeah.
Or, "Ooh, that felt really like that something felt off there. Why?"
Yeah.
Write all of those things down, take notes on that, and look for those pieces and, ways that things kind of felt great or didn't feel so great, and, look at it objectively and subjectively, why.
Mhm.
Um so, couple places that you may find, like, you may look and be like, "Okay, like, yeah, I think I have all of those things in place, at least, a couple in each category. I'm feeling okay." Um, Here is when you know you need them, including but not limiting. Like, again, I always say, like, these lists could be so long. I could include everything and I want to include everything, but these were just the ones I could think of first. If you've had any kind of major physical changes, or it's been a really long time since you've had photos taken, say, like, my hair is really long right now. If I were to chop it off, like, it would be a nice time to get some updated photos done. Or if I were to,
Like what you currently look like, you know? Yeah.
exactly, yeah. Or, anything major, say, like, I lived in DC for a very long time, recently moved to Baltimore.
Mhm.
I say recently, it was 9 months ago.
I feel that.
And I know, I know. And, like, it might be good to have some updated pictures here. That was another big change in my life, and I haven't
Mhm.
really gotten around to it, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Same,
So
same with Charles also, so.
yeah, we'll work on it. Even more than that, you have a website, overall launch, upcoming launch, or like an overall shift in products or brand image. Chances are good you may be relaunching a product, launching something new, relaunching an offering, or just want to promote an offering. Say, like,
Like, for a product, you mean like specific, like, service for photographers, like, specifically? Would you
yeah,
say like service or like product?
I would say it depends. I would say for
Okay.
both. Like, it depends on what you're offering within your
Okay.
business. Say you're a photographer and you're wanting to launch mobile presets.
Mhm.
Or say you're a photographer and you're wanting to launch family sessions
Okay.
and you've been a wedding photographer. I would say, like, product, it just depends on the bucket that you're falling into. But yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point to clarify.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing.
Physical, okay.
Say
Mhm.
um, you're launching a blog, that could be a product as well, or, another, aspect of your online channel, YouTube channel, or anything like that. So
Yeah.
another offering, I guess, would be a better word to use. Offering, whether that's a physical, tangible, digital, or experiential
It's
product.
part of your business, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, let's see. Okay. If you feel like you're constantly drawing from the same pot of images over and over again, it might be a good time. Yep, me,
Yes.
pick me. Yep, yep, story of my life. Yes. Um, if you feel like you're constantly drawing from the same pot and they're not necessarily hitting with the same bang that you wanted to. Like, the first time you launched, you're like, yeah, I felt really good about sharing that. And the second time you share it, you're like, okay, I shared this
Okay.
picture a lot. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. That's my face. Yep. Might be time to dig a little deeper and to kind of use, that element. I know I need a picture to fill this hole.
Mhm.
What do I need that to look like? Something feels off when it comes to your online presence. If you already have a really solid grasp on everything we've talked about already, chances are good a brand session might be a really good fit. Um, with the caveat being that brand sessions are not necessarily a fix all. If you feel like something is off, like it can be really easy um, to want to look for something that's going to be the thing that changes everything. And while it's an amazing, amazing resource
Yeah.
that will help you make steps forward, sometimes it can be almost more of a detriment to do an experience that you're not necessarily ready for, or that will not necessarily serve your business well. Um, if there's something else that could serve you better, say like headshots. Maybe a brand session is something that you need in a year and a half. I know right now I really want to do a brand session, but there are a couple of things within my own business that I want to refine a little bit more before I know I'm going to be ready for that.
Sounds like it kind of sounds to me like when you're first starting out and you're kind of debating like, okay, do I go full custom website design by a designer
Yeah,
who's doing it completely custom for me, or do I do a template, customize it for my needs right now, and then eventually invest in the full enchilada, right?
exactly. Yeah, because as a brand photographer, it would break my heart if someone invested in an experience that stressed them out, first of all,
Yeah.
but also was a waste of their investment. I want everything that they get to be everything they need and more. And it's another thing that is really helpful to do to get that. Um, is to make a list of like everything you need. And we'll go over that in just a second. But it would break my heart if someone invested in an experience with me that wasn't necessarily something that served them the best that it possibly could. So that's why I always want to be very clear and kind of, defining things and walking through this, because it can be really easy to say like, okay, brand photography, it's going to fix everything. And while it really could be an amazing service for you and it could be perfect for exactly what you need, let's do the groundwork, let's lay the foundation, and once you have that foundation we can use that to run off of and to really build the house on top of it. um
Because you have like a pretty in-depth like questionnaire that you send out before a
mhm,
brand session, right? Like it's like
yeah,
touches on all the things that you've talked about, right?
yeah,
And like
yeah,
goes deeper on every single one.
yeah,
Yeah.
so as part of my brand photography experience, we'll do, even before we even start planning a session or even make things official, we'll hop on a call to talk a little bit more about your brand, your vision, your goals, your values, everything. So I can get an idea for if we would even be a good fit
Mhm.
for, working together. And then even more than that, once we make things official, it's like a giant, giant, giant questionnaire that
Yeah.
dives into everything, because as a photographer, I want to be able to get to know your business. And while I say like everything kind of has like, you want to make sure that you know your foundation really well, is because I go based on what I learned from your business, based on what I see online, but also based on what is shared with
Yeah.
me about your business. And without having those words articulated, it can be really hard sometimes to create concepts and everything.
Yeah.
But also really amazing when you do have those concepts in place, when you've got those visions and you're like, okay, I know I really want to work with, let's say, families that are on the go but have a really strong heart for spending quality time together. How do we create imagery that serves that? Let's do it. Like that's going to be amazing, right? Like we can do a couple of really awesome photos of you hanging out with your family, enjoying dinner poolside or, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but without those things in place, it can be really hard to do that. So, couple of really fun places to start looking for. Say you're like, okay, I think like, yeah, brand photography sounds like something that I need, something that I really want. Sit down, open up a notebook, note on your phone, and
Mhm.
start jotting down a couple of places where you're like say like, oh, I've used that photo again. It would be really great to have something to share for this.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, I'm updating my website, or I'm working with a designer, they're updating my website and they need a really strong wide image, shot horizontally with negative space on the left hand
Mhm.
side.
Mhm.
Really specific, you might not remember that in a week,
Yeah.
because I know I've got a million things going on. Jot it down the second you think you need it,
Yeah.
and that'll serve you really, really well over time. And then share that with your brand photographer.
Yeah.
I want people to over communicate with me, because I want to know everything about your brand, everything about you. Again, like, the caveat of boundaries, but um, everything that you feel comfortable sharing, because um, that's ultimately going to help me serve you better, and to serve brands better,
Yeah.
and to really, really help get those images that will help you shine and share and all that good stuff. Yes. Okay. So the questions for the sticky note, I came up with like a couple of recommendations for questions. What do you continuously pull from? If there is a specific bank that you pull from and style of imagery that you pull from, write that down.
Mhm.
What do you want to share about but don't currently have? Is there a topic that you want to talk more about? Maybe,
Keegan,
I'm getting into yeah, Keegan. Yeah, like
I'm a
Keegan
cat
or
now. I have like
yeah,
no good photos of them.
exactly. Yeah. It's like, what are those things that are going to resonate with your ideal audience
Yeah.
that you don't have to pull from right now? Um, what do you have? Like, where do you have your holes? Where do you have content holes? Is it on your website? Is it on email templates? Is it on social media?
Yeah.
Is it in
Or
client
platform.
guides?
Yeah.
Yeah, which platform is it? Where are the holes? Write down where you have the holes, and then even more than that, like, I mean, obviously your brand photographer will help you come up with ideas to fill those holes, but if there's something specific you need to fill those holes, um, think about it. Yeah. Yeah. So say there's like a point of your, you know, wedding photography experience where you sit down with your couples in person and you go out to pizza.
Mhm.
Like do you want an image to share about that?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Is that important to you? If so, write it down.
Mhm.
Um, what do you want to share more of and need more of that you currently share about? Like say you love cooking and you don't have enough photos of you cooking, but you share about it every now and then on your Instagram story. Write that down.
Mhm.
Do you have imagery that can share about what you do? Do you have behind the scenes of you working with an ideal client? Would that be valuable to your business? If so, write it down. So those are just a couple of places to get you started. I always say like brand photography is such an amazing experience, and it's a lot of fun to really dig deep, but it can be a lot of work. So, first things first, don't let it intimidate you because it can be one of those things where you're like, oh no, everything has to be perfect before I do this. And I know I gave a lot of like, this, that, and caveats today, but
Yeah.
um, with that in mind, like know that like if you've got an idea and you've got a goal and you've got a vision, chances are good it would be a good fit. Make sure that everything's solid and in place and not going to change because ultimately like if things change and we don't have the images that would break my heart that the experience didn't serve you to the fullest capacity, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, really great way to foster and create connections and to tie in those elements of your personal brand and
Mhm.
the overarching elements of what comprises a brand,
Mhm.
tying those things together, I feel like brand imagery really just adds the bow to the top of the
Yeah.
package. It
No,
ties everything together
yeah.
and it creates a visual to a lot of the, topics that we talked about today.
And like the intangibles kind of that you still want to
Mhm.
communicate. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of intangible objects, ideas,
Concept.
thoughts, processes tangible.
Yeah.
Um, if you've got that really solid grasp
Yeah.
on the visual and the ideas.
Yeah. Well, this
Yeah.
has been so good. I have one final question to you because I
Yeah.
feel like it kind of like really brings it back to like the Vault community and stuff like that. Is can you speak to the importance of still investing in brand photography, even as a photographer yourself who's capable of maybe taking the headshots, of maybe taking
Yes.
or having some behind the scenes images from like your second shooters and stuff?
Yeah.
Would like because I am now hitting the point where I'm like, I definitely still see the value. Whereas beforehand, I was like, I'm a photographer, like I have enough behind the scenes and stuff, but I was like, I
Mhm.
don't have like the full cohesive imagery. But I would love to hear like your take on why
Yeah.
you think it's important, even for photographers who like photograph by trade.
100%. So I do a lot of self portraits of myself.
Yeah, she's
And
very
I consider those to be headshots.
headshots.
I consider them to be a little bit more surface level and just kind of like, an easy thing that I can put together myself.
Yeah.
With brand photography, I feel as a photographer, I feel like it helps you dig deeper in
Mhm.
a way that you might not do on your own.
Mhm.
And other people are able to identify oftentimes more in you than you're able to identify in
Yep.
yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that's the biggest difference. Community is an amazing thing, and tapping into other people's, creative expertise to help serve your business is a really amazing thing. So chances are good someone may see something or they may have an idea that would serve you really well that you're not
Yeah.
able to see because you're in it. You're
Yeah.
in it and you're not looking at it from that outside bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And as your brand photographer, chances are good they'll want to get to know everything about you, the brand you're building, the ideas you have, where you're taking this, adventure of yours, what you do on a daily basis,
Mhm.
why you do what you do on a daily basis,
Yeah.
and be able to combine that into imagery. And oftentimes, like, I know if I think about what I would do within my own business, I would just kind of be like, okay, like, yeah, I like sit on my computer all day and like those are all the images that I need.
Yeah.
And that's not
Yeah.
necessarily true. Um, it's important to have that almost like I would say, on a wedding day, how you have like a wedding planner, they're really able to make those like objective decisions, like,
Mhm.
and can get a little more creative because they've got that as their, sole focus other than like coordinating logistics and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I would say it's really important to have someone that can come in as that third party,
Mhm.
um, to help make things happen.
Yeah.
Because it can also be another thing I would say if you don't have something on the calendar with yourself, it can be really easy to be like, "Oh, I just don't
Michelle?
wanna get in front of the camera today. Nope, not
Absolutely.
happening today." And
It's
then all of a
yeah.
sudden it's been 4 months and you're like, "Oh, what were we gonna do?" Like,
It's also
so
so much faster, I think, when you have somebody else
mhm.
photographing you versus you
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
take it with the self timer and like your focus is off and like we
Mhm.
know how to do it, but sometimes the actual execution is so much harder if it's just
It can be
you
so much of a
and you're trying
pain.
to control your camera and then run and like sit and like
And
there's so
sit
much
and
more
look good.
variety. Yeah, you can get with
Yeah.
taking them. And I think headshots, like people swap headshots a lot, but
Mhm.
that again, like you mentioned, only really goes surface level. It doesn't get every single part of the process and kind of like the magic behind like what you do. It's just like
Yeah.
your face with your
I love that.
camera,
Yeah.
maybe, you know?
And I
Yeah.
would say and it's fun, like, it's okay to treat
Yeah.
yourself and to treat yourself to kind of like that experience where you're gonna sit down
Mhm.
and dive deep into your business and be like, "Okay, like, it's been a while since I've looked at, like,
Yeah.
this and how I'm tying everything together. This is a
Yeah.
really good reminder." Like, looking at all of that, but then also, like, it is kind of fun, like, get dressed up and, hang out and have someone serve you. Like, it can be
Yeah.
really fun to be on the other side and to know what it's like to be a client.
That
I
too.
think
Yeah, I was
that's
gonna say
it
that.
can be really fun to know
Yeah.
what it's like to be a client. But even more than that, I think it's just like Manali said, like logistic wise, it can be a lot easier to have someone take care of you and to take care of those shots. Um, and then digging on the deeper end to like they might see something in you or something in your process
Yeah.
or have an idea for a visual that you would have never thought of. Two brains, I feel like is always
Better
better than one.
one. Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so
Oh,
much. This has been so good.
yeah, this has been
I'm
really fun. I hope this
so
was helpful.
happy that you came and chatted again with people. And if anyone has questions, how can they reach you?
Oh yeah. So feel free to Instagram message me. It's probably the best place. I'm at Cait Kramer, Caitkramer. Feel free to reach out. Would love to chat. I love talking about personal marketing,
Yeah,
personal branding, and all of that.
really
Couple of
nice.
resources. I
Yeah.
have a blog post all about like the difference between headshots and brand sessions that might dive a little deeper. Um, it is what's I'm looking at the link right now. It's what's the difference between headshots and brand sessions. So very deep on the title there, but it dives a little bit more into the difference of both of those, as well as like a couple. I have a couple of blog posts on like choosing locations for brand sessions and stuff like that. But I know Manal, you could probably talk a little bit more about like the resources and stuff like that that you used to dive into, establishing values and the foundation for your business and stuff like that. I think that would be a really good value add. I know I found a lot of value in branding foundations with Abby Grace, but Manal, can talk a little bit more about resources that you've loved.
Yeah. I was gonna say the person that I've learned the most about branding from was Bonnie Bakhtiari, and she was a guest expert, and she talked on kind of the basics of branding that we went a little bit deeper in this, but she used a really, really good resource to just go through her blog, because she talks a lot about like the basics of branding behind just like the fonts and the logos and
Mhm.
like the colors and stuff like that. So she would be like my number one resource for people. But I will link all of this stuff in the description so you guys can just go there to find anything that Katie mentioned or that I mentioned. But yeah,
Yay! This is so
great.
fun.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
thanks,
sorry
Jen.
it got long. I told you I
Oh,
can go down a
you're
lot of
totally
rabbit
fine.
holes.
It's totally fine. People listen to these as like podcasts and stuff, so it's totally fine.
Good.